Hi, I'm Jeff Murr. I want to welcome you to True Texas History, where today we're going to be taking a look at what would Sam say. Um, and I decided to go ahead and do this. One of the viewers went ahead and posed a question. Let's see. He said he heard somewhere that Sam Houston favored Texas seceding from the Confederacy and the Union. Um, And I decided that, okay, I'll answer that. And also take up the question, what would Sam say um, on some of these issues? Well, first off, let me go ahead and start off. Um, and I shared some of this story the other day when I was talking about annexation, because when our initial attempt at annexation failed in the Senate, Houston was very angry. He was governor at the time, president at the time. He called back as our representative, and he said that Texas would work out her own political salvation. And he also added that if annexation would fail, the glory of the United States has already culminated. A rival power will be built up in Texas. And some of his writings at the time actually diagrammed out Texas, well, a belt with Texas at one end stretching all the way to California. And he saw that as, for lack of a better term, let's just go ahead and call it Eretz Texas or Greater Texas. Um, and that was his vision. Now, when we joined the United States, he was supportive of the idea. Actually, he was one of the first senators. Uh, he got into a heap of trouble with the voters of Texas when he was one of the ones pioneering the sale of millions of acres of Texas, you know, that part that used to stretch all the way up to Wyoming. Uh, he was instrumental in that, and people were furious over that whole episode. But, anyways, on the secession issue, initially he verbalized opposition to it. We do have some of his speeches where he spoke out. One of his most famous ones is September of 1860, where he said, and I've mentioned it, he talked about how he came to Texas, uh, and the way he phrased it, I volunteered to aid in transplanting American liberty to this soil. There was always a suspicion that he was a plant of President Jackson to come down here and expand America, as rather than fighting for Texas liberty. And in this speech, he hints at that. But anyways, the speech goes on, and he points out, what is there free that we have not got? Are our rights invaded and no government ready to protect us? No. Are institutions wrested from us and other foreign to our taste forced upon us? No. Is the right of free speech, a free press, and a free suffrage taken from us? Has our property been taken from us and government failed to interpose? No, none of these. The rights of the states and the rights of individuals are still maintained. We have yet the Constitution. We have yet a judiciary which has never been appealed to in vain. We have our laws and our officers to administer them. So at the time, in 1860, he was opposed to secession, but he did give the caveat, as long as these freedoms are kept in place, which in 1860 he believed that they were, and many of them had not been totally infringed upon at that point. Um, Now, I don't know if you could always say that today with some of the things that have happened, but in answer to the question, uh, after Texas did leave and join put themselves with the Confederacy. Now, let me go ahead and spell out. Texas did go ahead and effectively become a republic again and joined with the Confederacy. It was a separate, independent functioning state. And there's some debate about whether, to what degree it did that, but it was acting as an independent agent. And there is evidence that Sam Houston did make contact with some of the foreign nations, some of the embassies, like for instance, the French embassy and the French legation, to try to uh, negotiate Texas leaving the Confederacy and going it alone. So there is evidence that he did do that before he passed away. So, in answer to the question that the reader asked, that Sam Houston favored Texas seceding from the Confederacy and the Union toward the end of his life, yes, he favored both of those. In 1860, was he in favor of it? No. Now, 2020, I don't think you can get the same check marks. But I wanted to go ahead and address those questions. And the question, what would Sam say? Because many times when Texas is in crisis or we're faced with challenges, we often consider, what would Sam say? Because Sam Houston loved Texas dearly. And he and Texas are so intertwined, it's hard to separate one from the other. Hope you enjoyed this. If you have future questions, feel free to put them down below. I'll be glad to get to them. There's some other questions that I do want to get to as well, and I'll do that in some future episodes. Thank you for tuning in. Until next time, vaya con Dios, my friends. Goodbye.